Kelly, good morning. Welcome to What If I Say Yes? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Lucia?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm gonna be a little bit hot because in order for me to not have the outside noise, I close the window and I have this light on. So
Yeah,
we'll see if I don't start sweating
yeah.
during our conversation, Kelly. So, Kelly, please tell the audience, who are you?
Well, you know my name, and I am a mother and of two, and I have been a library assistant for the last 23 years. And both of those things are really big parts of my life. Like I love what I have done at the library. Um, Lately it's been very stressful, but before the last couple of years, I created story times for families and their young children, along with all kinds of other library jobs. And I loved that. I love meeting people and meeting the kids and babies and watching them grow up.
Mhm.
And so that's been a wonderful job for me. And of course, being a mother is the best job of all. And my kids are 34 and 28. Yeah. And the oldest is a girl and the youngest is a boy. And they just mean the world to me. They're everything to me. And my husband, Scott.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's pretty much me. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to any given person, but I guess I don't need to go into everything else.
Okay, fair enough. So now tell the audience what is it that you remember about how we met?
So it was definitely at the library and during a story time. And I think your family used to come before you even volunteered with me. You would come to story time, and it was just always a delight to have you guys there, which is why I think I ended up inviting you to do work with me as a volunteer on our multicultural story times. And yeah, I just have great memories of you and your husband and Maya coming and sharing story time, and along with hundreds of others. And I'm glad that we were able to have a little more of a connection than, some families who grow up and they either move away or they just grow up and out, and I don't necessarily see them again, except maybe a few years later where they come back and it's like, oh, this is so and so. And I'm like, what? They have totally grown. So yeah, it's been nice to have a connection with you that kind of stayed.
Mhm. So here's what I remember. Well, first, a little bit of context. The way you meet people here when you have little kids, it's a little bit different from what I had seen in Mexico. Because here the libraries are very present, there are a lot, and they are very important in communal life. So when Maya was born, she was born in New York City. We were living in Jersey City. We moved very quickly to Brownsville, Texas. And it was a new place, a completely new environment for me. And very quickly, I learned that going to the library, to the public library, was a perfect place to be with Maya, have fun activities, and also meet other families. And so we stayed there for 3 years. When we moved to Ithaca in 2013, so Maya was 3 and something years old, I knew that I had to go to the public library because I had learned over those 3 past years that libraries were the perfect place to be with a young child. So yes, we started going and you had so many wonderful activities. I remember one time we had to choose a teddy bear. Also, Maya had to choose a teddy bear to live at the public library overnight, like a
Oh.
sleepover. Things like those that for me were so fun and so wonderful. Of course, for Maya was as they were fun as well. And so yes, we started getting to know you and the other your other coworkers, lovely, lovely people. Then I learned about the Multicultural Day, which was it had a very complicated history, the Dia celebration. Um, so it was the equivalent of the day, the Children's Day, like
Yeah, Children's Day, Book Day.
that in Mexico, it's only
Yeah,
April 30th is El Día de los Niños, and that's it. But here it was linked to books and
yeah,
to.
yes.
So then I took what I learned from you, and when I was the PTA co-president at Maya's Elementary, I implemented ideas that had to do with that. So we created a book every year, and we created a video one time. I had moms. So we filmed 8 or 9 different moms reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar in their own language.
Oh, yeah. I
And
remember
then
you
we
saying,
created,
how many languages can you?
I had to ask permission to the Eric Carley Foundation Association. I don't know, but I remember I had to send an email asking for permission to do this because I wanted to be very respectful.
Oh, yeah.
And then they gave us permission, so we published. So we did several activities through that. So I was only PTA co-president for 1 year, but I continued with this project while Maya was in elementary. So that I took from you and your ideas. And recently you called me back for one of these days to read a book in Spanish. And so I don't know, it's been full circle, and having met you has been so lovely for me, for Maya, for Carlos. So yes, that's the whole story.
Same here. It's been lovely being able to get to know you a little more.
So being you such a special person in our lives, then one day I came to you and I said, Kelly, I have this new project. I have this YouTube channel. It's based on this idea, the what if I say yes? Would you like to be interviewed? And finally you said yes. And here we are. So, Kelly, what was that moment in your life when you asked the question, what if I say yes? You said yes and did something.
Yeah. Well, it was a very, very difficult moment. It was during the time right after my mother-in-law passed away, who was a really dear friend to me. Like, you don't always hear that about mother-in-laws, but she's probably as much as the reason why I married my husband as who did, because she and her husband are just wonderful, wonderful people. So she had died from cancer earlier in this month. It was January 99. And I had had my 2 kids, and we found out I was pregnant. And it was just a really, really hard time because of we were grieving. You know, she was very ill. I didn't know I was pregnant at the time she was ill. And yeah, it was just really tumultuous and emotional. And we felt like we knew that we had options. We had 2 kids already, and we were struggling financially. We pretty much always have. And we had to make a decision. I caught it very early on about whether we would have another child
Mhm.
or whether we would choose an abortion.
Mhm.
So we talked about it, and we together chose to say yes to the abortion.
Mhm.
And, because we were worried about how our kids' lives would be if we had added another child
Mhm.
when we were already struggling and we'd lost this huge support presence in our lives
Mhm.
within his mother. She
Mhm.
was the best grandmother ever.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she was as much a mother to me as my own. And maybe more because my mother moved away and lived with one of my sisters in Texas
Mhm.
after she retired. And so Ellen was always there. That was her name.
Mhm.
And yeah, we just didn't know how we could do it, whether we should do it, and thinking about the kids and what their future's going to be like if we made our lives even more financially difficult.
Mhm.
So we did. We said yes to having an abortion. And it was rough. We we scheduled it as soon as we could because it was only a few weeks. I was
Mhm.
only a few weeks in, and nobody wanted it to go farther.
Mhm.
And the only time they could get me in was the day before her funeral, which was also my husband's 40th birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it was like it was really, really terribly sad.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but we went to Planned Parenthood and they were amazing. They were just so kind.
Mhm.
And, they could see that we were both distraught, probably more so, certainly more so over my mother-in-law's passing
Mhm.
than the decision about the abortion. But of course, that's not a decision you make lightly.
Mhm.
And I would have loved to have another child, but it just didn't make sense for our family. So yeah, they gave us some time to alone in a dim room to talk, and they were like, take all the time you need, and you can change your mind. It's everything, it's all up to you, and please don't feel pressured in any way.
Mhm.
And yeah, we basically just sat in that room and cried. It's like
Mhm.
we knew that we wanted to do it, that we felt didn't want to do it, but we felt it was the best thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, and so, we went through with it. And interesting thing about it was that will they do an ultrasound first to see where you're at? Or I think it's an ultrasound. I can't even remember now. It was so long ago,
Mhm.
whatever, some kind of scan. And they said, you know what? It looks like the fetus is not viable. So would you like to go ahead and not have the abortion, the procedure, because eventually you would miscarry? And I was like, well, I'm really glad I said yes, because, pregnancy does not suit me. It makes me
Mhm.
really sick both times.
Mhm.
So in that sense, it was good for my health too, because the baby wasn't viable.
Mhm.
And
What does it mean that it wasn't viable?
so, at that point, it's a very small structure,
Mhm.
and it wasn't properly, if I remember this right, it wasn't
Mhm.
properly attached to the uterine wall where
Okay.
it should have been. So,
Mhm.
and at that time in 99, I was 40.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was 40.
Mhm.
And, you know, it was an accident. We were taking precautions and
Mhm.
somehow this happened.
Mhm.
And at 40, probably it's not the easiest time to have a baby anyway. When you're trying, you know, it doesn't always, work so well. So, yeah, so it turned out to be a good thing in the long run, but then, you know, the funeral and his birthday was the next day. And I didn't feel too great, you know, physically, but I got through it. And so, yeah, that's,
Is this a story I'm assuming you told your kids
yes,
later in life?
yeah, we've talked about it. Yep.
How old were they when you first shared that you had had an abortion?
Yeah, I don't remember, because we didn't talk about it during that time. It was just, everything was about Alan and,
How
um,
old were they?
so Bennett was 3,
Mhm.
Kelsey was 9. And yeah, my sister came over and watched them for us. And there was like a snowstorm too, so coming
Oh,
home
wow.
was like scary as well
Mhm.
in January. So yeah.
How
I
long do you think it took you to recover emotionally from it wasn't only the abortion, but when the abortion happened, like the death of or the passing of your mother-in-law, and then this event, and it was so many things in just a very short period of time. So how long did it take you to finally breathe out and say, well, this happened and I'm fine?
yeah. Um, I don't think it was too long, but honestly, I can't remember because it was a long time ago. I'm 65 now. It's 2024, so it was like quarter century ago.
Mhm.
Um, I don't really remember, but I don't generally hang on to negative things for a long time.
Mhm.
And we still had his dad to take care of and to try and visit before he moved away. And you know, he tried his best to be the single grandparent, but they he didn't stay around too much longer after she died. I can't remember what year he found another love and moved to Nova Scotia. We were like,
Mhm.
what? Another hard thing, but that's not what this is about. So yeah. I don't
When
really
you find,
remember.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't really remember when it all kind of felt better, you know, but you know, we have a loving family and we got through it.
Do you remember your kids' reactions when you finally shared this with them?
You know, my daughter's here. I don't know if she even remembers
Mm.
the first time I said something. But you know, today, when we were talking about it, and I was telling her I was going to have a Zoom, and she said, and I said that you asked this question, and you said, what was the question? And I could barely get it out of my mouth before I started crying, and she started crying, and you know, so now that she's older,
Mhm.
and it affected her a lot more than it would have when she was young. I don't think she would have really understood it very much.
Mhm.
Really, I don't even remember when the first time was that, you know, we talked about it, unless probably we were talking about abortion. Or there's probably something political like there is always about abortion going on. And
Mhm.
I think I might have just said, well, you know, I know what it's like, and because I had one too. And,
Mhm.
yeah, too long
So
ago.
now, why did you decide to share this what in this space, especially given the political environment that we live in this country right now?
That's exactly why, because I know that so many other people have gone through, you know, making decisions like that. And so many people are just so horrible to them. Like they have no idea why. so many people who are just really vocal anti-abortionists, they use the words like murder, and it, and they may have a very different feeling about what fetuses are, and they have different religious feelings, and they just try to press all that on the people who don't believe in that way. And it's so hurtful. It's just so hurtful. So I thought it would be a good one to share, and I do want to share it in case there's other women out there who went through the same thing, or families. I didn't go through it by myself. My husband went through it too. And yeah, I wanted to share it to maybe help other people feel like they're not alone.
Is this the first time you share this publicly? Like, did you before write anything down or got it published, or this is the first time you shared your story?
Yeah, like in such detail. I did write a quick story for Planned Parenthood because they were gathering stories a few years ago, and I put that in, but it was anonymously, or maybe it might have had my first name, and so that they could put it along with a bunch of other stories. Yeah.
And all these many, many years later, it's interesting that you couldn't say it to your daughter, you can, without starting crying. What is it that you feel that you still have to process? Why is the crying part still there, very present? What do you think?
Well, I don't think that is something I need to process. I just think it's because not only were there sad connotations or things that were going around surrounding it, but it was an opportunity that I had to say no to, and I don't take it lightly. Like, I don't feel guilt. I don't feel shame, but I just feel sadness, just like I think it was a life that could have been and that couldn't. And, it couldn't have anyway, apparently, medically. And I'm still sad. It just makes me sad that I value life, and, it would have been a life that we created. And it's sad. I don't think it's bad. Just sad. So, yeah.
It's interesting because so many times the opposite argument comes with, as you said, very simplified arguments. So this is good or this is bad. You're a good person or you're a bad person, depending on one decision that, if you looked at it in context, can make you change your mind. Like, every story is completely different, and every story is valid, and every story has a heart. I mean, every story has human beings going through something very difficult. Nobody takes this lightly.
Yeah. And why do these people why do these people ignore that part of our humanity? Why is it that they just feel like they need to lash out and call people terrible names, or and I mean, my interpretation is it's religion. Religion doesn't always, sometimes has a wonderful effect on people, and sometimes it has a very negative effect on people. Many wars are started over religions. And yeah, so I guess that's why it's not everybody cares about each other, and cares to look into the humanity of a situation before they spout whatever they need to spout. that makes me a very avid supporter of choice. Yeah, it's choice too.
It's very interesting because here I have worked with people and I have befriended people who have, I later found out, have different or complete opposite political views than mine. And if I take all that out, they were very nice to me. I was always very nice to them. Like in the day-to-day human relationship at work or in friendships, you can be with each other. And it's only when you take that part of your very deep belief and put it onto that it becomes it becomes a very weird thing. So I don't know if maybe, like, I can see the people that I met and the people I work with, I can see them in a different light because I first had a human interact, like a very human person-to-person interaction with them. I met them, I met their families, I knew their stories. And I guess I'm also trying to figure out, like, these people who are very opposed to abortion in general, if they could only meet the people the way I met them and first meet them as human beings, it may be just a little window to make them change their mind and see, well, yeah, I can see that there are different shades of gray. Like there are different, like what I think it's true all the time, it may not be that way just because I believe in this or just because someone told me to believe in this.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, the political landscape in the last several years has just been very much against that human interaction. It's so important to some of these politicians to remain in power or to keep their seat of power, that they'll just do, it's divide and conquer. And there's no encouragement of talking to one another. And there are great organizations that actually do try and do that. They try to get people together to talk, and sometimes it has great results. Often it has great results if it's done well. Yeah, it's really too bad that that's where we find ourselves. But I also think that what you're doing is absolutely brilliant because you're going against that. You're going in the opposite direction. It's like, I want to talk to you about who you are. And I'm just because I want to get to know you as a human and just people, people in general as humans instead of as opponents or whatever. So I think it's really wonderful what you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. You said before we started the interview that your yes and your no were linked. Is that because the yes was yes to the abortion, but the no was no to the baby?
Yeah.
Is that the no?
Yeah. Big, big no, right? I had to say, yeah, I had to make that decision. And when I was thinking about the interview, I'm like, what's going to be yes and what's going to be no? Because really, the abortion was the yes. I had to say that, yes, I would do it. And then that created the no, which meant, no, I won't be having this child.
Which then creates a very interesting situation for this channel. What made you could have chosen the exact opposite, the yes and the no. So what made you decide that the yes had to be the abortion part?
Yeah.
Why that had to have the yes light?
Yeah. Because of like I think I mentioned it earlier, we had just lost a huge support system in our lives, and we were grieving, And we also didn't have, much money. We were not financially in a place.
No,
Let's
but I mean, I understood the reasons why you said yes to that, but why posing it here for this conversation as that was the yes, as opposed to, let's say, your yes was saying yes to only having 2 kids, or yes to keeping a family of 4. And
Oh,
the no, it was, I don't want to have this kid. That's what I meant.
oh, wow, that's really tricky. Um, I think part of the yes was a yes to my kids,
Mhm,
because it was a yes to their future,
mhm,
because I knew how difficult it would be, how much more difficult it would be. We're already paycheck to paycheck. And, that's not a good place to be, and then invite another life into your kids are expensive. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it was as much about them. And also, now that I have been living with my kids for all these years,
Mhm,
it just, I understand just what a treasure they are.
mhm,
And how would it be different if I had 3? Would
mhm,
I know these 2 as well as I do? Would I be as close to these 2 as I am now? And we're very close.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, the no really was more about, you know, life was just going to be anticipating that life would be too difficult,
mhm,
knowing our circumstances
mhm.
for the
It's
family.
funny. When you said kids are expensive, I remember when I got married with Carlos, it took us 7 years to have Maya.
Oh,
And it wasn't because we didn't want to. It was like, I remember having said to my friends, we don't have the money. Like, yes, we can have a baby like next year, but we don't have the money to support that baby. Like, how we first need to be on firm landing financially to then offer this new life a place in the world that we can offer her this um, secure environment with all the resources that we're going to need, at least to begin.
yeah.
Before that, it was just unthinkable. But I also remember how different it was from what I had been accustomed to here in Mexico. Like, well, you just get married and have kids, and there's even a saying in Mexico that you don't worry about your finances because the kid always comes with a torta bajo el brazo, like a sandwich under the arm, meaning like they are going to bring everything you're going to need when they're born.
Oh,
And that sounds lovely,
it
but
does
it's
sound
very
lovely.
practical. And it may not be very true. Like
Yeah,
I can understand it as once the kid is born, you make every effort to then keep him or her alive and you work harder.
yeah,
Yes, you can do that. But if you have the option of waiting or of saying not now, later, it will be better, why not? What um that can also be an option, I mean, no? So
yeah. I think a lot of those um, ideas are deeply rooted in certain religions, that it's good to procreate, and some religions are like you must avoid not procreating even, it's like, and that's all kind of surrounding the idea in my mind that humans are like the most important animals on this planet, and
mhm.
I don't believe that at all. I mean, we are certainly the most destructive,
Mhm.
but we are not any more important than any other animals. And yeah, So I have a lot more of a sort of a scientific nature-based view on spirituality. And
Mhm,
that ties right into, I think that's another reason why I didn't feel any guilt or really bad feelings about doing it, but it was
mhm,
just sad.
mhm,
So, and I think that also shows that you don't have to be a religious person to feel emotion about uh,
mhm.
life, or the prospect of life, or the prospect of not bringing forth life. Um, so yeah, it's a pretty interesting and very deep subject.
Mhm. So when someone asks you, how many kids do you have? In your mind, do you always count that third that could have been but wasn't, or it's too no question?
Yeah,
How do you think about it? Like how does it come out
yeah,
without thinking?
yeah, too.
Two.
Yeah, because, I think part of that is knowing, like if I had been pregnant and I wanted the baby and we lost it, I probably would say 2.5, or something like that.
Mhm,
But since it wasn't, it was just less than 6 weeks and we caught it really fast. I knew because I felt gross already, um, that it really wasn't a part of our life. And that's not to say I don't remember and think about it often.
mhm,
It's funny, my sisters, I used to have a rabbit when I was a kid,
mhm.
and I loved my bunnies, and they would always get me bunny things like bunny tchotchke. And my one sister bought me a little set of China rabbits, and it was a China it's like a mama and
Mhm.
3 bunnies, and one of the bunnies arrived with the ear broken.
Oh.
Yeah. And this was after, and I arranged them on my dresser, and I let the two, after I've dusted, I let the two, whole bunnies kind of, they're out here a little ways, and the little bunny with the broken ear, I tuck under the mommy's chest. And and so every week when I do the dusting, I'll think about that, and I'll think about the bunny I didn't have. So yeah, it's still a part in a sense. It's always in my heart, but I don't think of it when we just talk about how many kids I have.
So it's part of you. And does it have a name? Does it have like what kind of presence does it have inside you? Um, do you
Yeah.
have a sex? Like, did you think of the baby with that specific gender? Do you what?
No,
Nothing. It's just what?
it was a group of cells that had tried to coalesce into a fetus, and it was not able to do that. I feel it very naturally, it wasn't meant to be.
So you only think of the being that wasn't some cells that couldn't be, but it doesn't have any other form or.
Well, no, like one thing Scott and I did decide on though,
Mhm,
um, was, or maybe, I don't know if he thought about this. I thought about it, and no, I think we did talk about it in that room when we were waiting before the procedure.
mhm.
We said that maybe Ellen could take care of it, that it was going to be in a place where she was too, and maybe she could receive it. So,
So when you think of that baby, you also think of Ellen? Is Ellen her
oh,
name?
well, yeah, absolutely. You can't help it because, yeah, I was worried at first, before I knew that it wasn't viable. My only thought was, what if there's some kind of crazy sort of karma that, you know, she got sick and I got pregnant and I should have this baby because there'd be some kind of bit of her in there, and we weren't going to let it grow.
Mhm.
And which is really, I don't really believe that. It
Mhm.
just, but you know, I don't know. I'm not arrogant enough to think that there's no such thing as, you know, uh greater being or some sort of a plane where people's spirits go. But it yeah, we kind of decided then that that's, you know, we made this decision, and if she was out there somewhere, we were going to just send the spirit of this child to her. um I forgot all about that until you were
Yes,
prodding
because
there.
when I'm posing these questions about how do you think about that baby that wasn't,
Yeah,
I guess what I was trying to get to was at least for me, it's very necessary to create stories
mm,
about the things that happen
I see.
because I'm also not religious. And maybe religion in a certain way helps people to give meaning easily to things, to bad things that happen.
Yeah,
Uh, but for people who are non-religious, creating our own stories and give our own meanings is very important. So
yeah,
this linking this soul or this being that wasn't with Ellen and her taking care of that being is so beautiful, but also so comforting. I mean, it's you
yeah.
managed to make something very painful a little bit less painful because it was linked to this profound love for Ellen and what Ellen now could offer to that being that you weren't going to be able to take care
Maybe that helped us get over it quicker, you know?
of.
Maybe
Hmm.
that was something, it was just so long ago. You had asked, like, when do you think you were all better? You know, maybe that was a big part of just being able to let go of it
Hmm.
quickly enough that I don't even remember, you know, suffering over it too much, you know?
Can we talk a little bit about Ellen?
Mm. She was a lot more of a mother figure than my mother was. My mother had a really crazy childhood. But she and dad wanted to have a lot of kids. So I'm the last of five.
Mhm.
And they were hoping for a boy because they had three girls, one boy, and they said, okay, one more time. And it was me. Um, but she was very tired of being a mother,
Mhm.
and we never had much work money when I was growing up. Like, I never had enough to eat. My dad worked in a print shop and my mom was a school secretary when she finally got back to work after the final fifth kid.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, that's actually another thing that probably helped us understand our decision, at least for me, understand
Mhm.
my decision, because I was always hungry,
Mhm.
never had quite enough to eat.
Mhm.
And I didn't want that to happen to my kids.
Mhm.
But Ellen, so my mom wasn't a very mothering mom. She was, you know, like when I had Kelsey, my grandmother, who was Italian, she was like, she had her baby. I'm coming down. When are we going to the hospital to see her? And she's like, Mom, she's in Binghamton. She's an hour away. And she's like, that's nothing. We got to go visit her. And my mom was like, we can wait. She's like, no, we can't. No, so my grandmother was all about it. And my mother was just like, you know.
Mhm.
So when, you know, I met Ellen, she is just a very warm, welcoming person. Her and Stu are both Christians in the Episcopal Church, and they
Mm.
definitely the good side of that religion. good examples of that religion, which also another dear friend of ours is also a Christian and just a wonderful person. And she was so excited about the baby. You know, she was there the day Kelsey was born and just, you know, taking pictures. And we had the shower at her house for Kelsey's, our baby shower before she was born. And she just is always, you know, she just welcomed me right into their family, like a very natural thing. And my family is not like that. Not at I mean, they, you know, they welcomed Scott, but not like with hugs and, you know, let us give you money if you need it, whatever. They were always like, his parents were always just so good to us, even before we were married. And then when Kelsey was old enough, well, she would babysit when we lived near her. And they just had this great bond. They would have tea parties. And she would let Kelsey put all the sugar she wanted to in her water, which was, yeah, I'm like, oh, grandma. And she loved doing dishes. She got this adorable apron for her that said, Owl, who'll wash the dishes? I'll, as in who, and owl dry them with a picture of an owl. It was, and Kelsey always called it doing dishing. And they just had such fun together. Yeah.
How did you first meet Ellen?
Probably through church, because I met Scott when I used to go to church when I was young. I used to be quite into it. And we would have, we'd go to different parishes and in different cities and meet different people. So I grew up in Horseheads, who grew up in Binghamton. And when we would go to their Episcopal church in Binghamton, I met him and his parents, because it'd be like youth groups getting together, but the parents would be, you know, dropping kids off and here, this is my mom and whatever. And I became best friends with one of the girls who, excuse me, also went to the church with Scott. She was Scott's lifelong best friend, and I became best friends with her before I met Scott. And so maybe, yeah, I think maybe the first time I met her was when we started going out, and he must have brought me home. I mean, my gosh, that was like 45 years ago. Yeah, I don't really remember, but I do remember before we were even really engaged. A friend of mine, we went to see another friend in Boston, and we were about to run out of gas, and neither one of us had any money. And I knew that we were getting close to Binghamton, and I was like, we can stop at Stu and Ellen's, and I know that they'll help us out. And they did. It was like no awkwardness at all. They were just like, oh my gosh, come on in. Let me give you $20. Will that be enough? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm so sorry. And they were like, no, come on in. They were like happy to see me, you know, and happy to help. An amazing couple. She was a great grandmother to Kelsey. She didn't live long enough to know Ben very well. Yeah. So we had, you know, we spent a lot of time together even before Scott and I got married. We were, you know, boyfriend and girlfriend, and we'd go over to their house for dinner, because I lived in Binghamton by that point. I'd moved there for a job, and yeah.
But so it's not that many years, and she left quite a mark on you and your life, quite an impression.
Oh yeah.
The love, I can feel it up until now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She was one of the most important adults in my life, as important as my own parents. And she survived my dad, but my mom died a few years after Ellen died. but yeah, no, I will never forget how warm and centering she was and how much she cared for me.
Mhm.
Just, it was amazing. I don't know that you can always say that about a mother-in-law. I guess the trope is that mother-in-laws are a pain in the butt, and not mine. I was happy when she was coming or whenever we were going to visit them. I was just like, yay. And her husband was equally lovely,
Mhm.
but it was her passing that coincided with the yes question. So
Mhm. I
that's what,
feel like we have to dedicate this interview to Ellen.
oh, that would be lovely.
But then before ending, I would like to ask you, and you can decide not to answer the question, but I just thought of this. If Ellen were still alive when you got pregnant, and let's say that you had made the same decision of having an abortion, what do you think she would have told you?
Um, she was never one to push her opinions or views on anyone. So I think she would have just said, you guys need to do what you need to do.
Mhm.
But do I even know if we would have told her? I don't know. All I can say is the world would have been so different that it's very hard to imagine. Would
Mhm.
we even have said no?
Mhm.
I think probably we would have, because it's kind as they were, we didn't want to live off them, live off their handouts, and it was pretty hard, to make ends meet. So
Mhm.
I really, I don't know, except for I think that I'm pretty sure she would not say, oh, how can you do that? Or,
Mhm.
you know, would she maybe have said, if there's any way I can help, let me know.
Mhm.
No, want me to watch the kids?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think, it's hard to say, but knowing her, I don't think she would have imposed any sort of view, just wanted to know how she could help.
Mhm. Very nice. Well, Kelly, we've managed to go through this very difficult yes and very difficult conversation. How do you feel?
Good. And grateful that this is something you do. I think it's really pretty amazing. And I'm glad that I waited, because to find out what the yes thing was that I needed to say and talk
Mhm.
about. Um, yeah, it's always, talking about a difficult subject makes my whole body kind of cramp up. It's like, it's stressful,
Mhm.
but I do feel like I'm glad that I could tell that story. And I hope that we can share it with
Mhm.
people. I hope we can make it look like it's shareable. I have no idea what I'm looking like. I'm sure I'm going to hate it. Just like your thing about the wrinkles, I'm going to get images of me and I'm just going to go, oh, I just don't look okay. So yeah, I do, ultimately, it feels very good to be able to really talk about the whole, surrounding issues, because I can't even really do that with my husband. We talked about it at times, but it's just so painful.
Mhm.
And then we got that pain out of the way. It's like, yeah, you got to bring up all that pain of his mom's passing, and that's the hardest part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Understandable. Okay. Any last words that you want to leave on this space
I guess not.
or
Just
in this space? In this space. The prepositions in English are so hard for me still. In, on, at,
yeah. So
in
that's
this
even
space.
hard for me still, there's, but yeah, no, just, I do want you to know that I think it's really wonderful what you're doing, and it's very special. And I look forward to, especially after I retire and I can kind of drop this library stress, um, to listen to more of, the stories, other people's stories, because I enjoy hearing other people's stories too.
Mhm.
And we get little bits and pieces when listening to NPR and watching PBS.
Mhm.
And I love those. So this is a great thing you do, and I think you do it really, really well.
Oh, thank you.
So keep on doing it, and thank you for, asking me.
Thank you. Well, it was an honor. Thank you for having said yes.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing this very difficult story, a part of your life. And now we're gonna have to get very creative, Kelly, because usually I end the interviews reminding my interviewee to send me pictures that have to do with the yes. But in this case, just send me pictures of whatever you want to be the last images people see after the interview.
I would just send some current pictures of my kids because they were a huge part of why we said yes to the abortion. Yeah. So I think that'll work.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have, if you're okay with it, a picture of Ellen.
Oh, yeah, we can definitely. I've got a picture of her holding Bennett. I've got a picture of, I think, her with Kelsey. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
perfect. I'll send you an email with all my reminders, don't worry. But thank you so much
Okay.
and have a beautiful rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And same to you. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to talking to you again soon and sharing
Yes.
pictures and stuff.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.